AWS and Salesforce came out guns blazing, full swing at Salesforce's Trailhead DX event, making a big announcement. First of all, let me just say this. AWS takes its partnerships very seriously. If you hear AWS coming out and saying, we're going to make a partnership, and in this level of partnership, you can be sure it's very serious. Not to say that Salesforce or any other company that announces partnerships don't take it very seriously, but as I always say, AWS is very meticulous in these kinds of things. The companies basically came together, and again, the news is that the two are going to work together to deliver and unify developer experiences and create this new intelligent application ecosystem. The underpinning and the story here, because remember, 6.5, we do deep analysis. We don't break too much news. You guys can all read. We know that. We want to tell you what it means. And as I see it, it kind of meant a couple of things. First of all, two what I would call market leaders in their respective spaces. I'm talking market leadership by the actual market size and percentage of market share. In CRM, business applications, Salesforce is still the leader. In IaaS, AWS is the leader. They're competing with fully vertically integrated stacks in terms of Google and Microsoft most specifically, but of course, Oracle also has a pretty extensive stack. We're going to talk more about what Oracle's doing to attract some business here in the near future. What I really like about this partnership is the deep level of integration and interoperability that's being created between these two companies. They're basically doing developer swapping all the way down to the core, meeting in the middle at the platform to basically say everything from your RDS on the database side, your storage systems, full integration so that essentially the vertical integration of AWS and Salesforce operates and functions much like you would say what Microsoft is trying to build with Azure, all the way up through its business and productivity tools and with Teams. I think this meant a couple of other things that are worth pointing out from an analysis side. First of all, I believe it's the end of any near-term consideration that Salesforce might be getting into public IaaS. This was a dedication and a commitment from Benioff to work side by side with AWS to deliver, the cloud through this partnership. The second thing is we've heard Benioff talk about what Slack is going to mean to its ecosystem. Well, through the intelligent application development, you start to think of it this way. Think about Slack plus Chime plus Salesforce CRM and Salesforce apps plus the AWS platform and infrastructure, and you put it together, and you really have now two companies, maybe three, with Google Workspace coming together to compete on that full integration. But you can be sure that the intention of Mark Benioff and the Salesforce team is that when Slack acquisition is finalized, that Slack becomes the center of its business operating system and ecosystem. And by the way, does this remind you at all of anything that, I don't know, Microsoft is doing with Teams? This is the future. We will operate out of a centralized stack that's not going to be email plus applications. It's going to be Teams. It's going to be Slack. It's going to be your Google Workspace. This is the technology that Salesforce needed to be able to do this. And by the way, we've seen AWS slowly get into some more software. They've gotten more into some analytics tools, gotten more into, the Chime contact center. But you start putting it all together and you have a very complete solution. However, my last thought, because I want to leave just a little bit for you since you left nothing for me on the last one, is that the development in the actual developer ecosystem is complex, and this has to work from a management, deployment, continuous improvement, innovation, and development standpoint seamlessly for the market to see this as partnership as a deeper than any other typically announced partnership between two big tech firms. I think it's going to get there. I think it's going to have a good result. And as I always say, when tech competes, you win. So in the end, all these companies are going to be pushed to innovate faster. Two very good companies in a very competitive space. Solid partnership.
You left me
nothing.
That's okay.
Yes.
So
I'm kidding.
No. If you one thing I brought up when Salesforce bought Slack was this is going to be. You ever heard the definition of a boat? Right. It's a hole in the water that you just keep piling money into. That's what I said would have to happen here, right? You're going to have a video property, and you're going to have a productivity property to fully compete with Google and Microsoft. And I think that's what we're seeing here, right? You have Chime, which ironically I use almost every day, which is more about APIs and what you can do with that than the actual experience, because the experience isn't great when compared to best in class. But that to me is about UI, not about the pipes, and it's the pipes that Salesforce wants here. But I will have caution again. What is their productivity answer here? Word processing, documents, and people are going to say, "Oh, you're just an old Gen X guy or a boomer." I'm not a boomer. I'm Gen X. But no. Sorry, business still runs on spreadsheets, presentations, and documents.
Well,
Okay?
Pat, really quickly, because I want to make sure they did acquire a company called Quip. Nobody has really heard about it or talked about it.
No, exactly. Just stop right there. Okay. Exactly. And maybe we should say the world is run on Microsoft Office 365 and Google Workspace. Yep. Okay. Whether you're a kid, a student, and how much money is going to have to be poured in that to be relevant, to go up against Microsoft and Google. And by the way, 10 years ago, I was saying the same thing with Google Workspace. Now, Google Workspace is 100% compatible backwards and forwards with what is the standard in business documents, which you could argue is primarily Microsoft and a little bit of Adobe in there. Here's the second thing. Microsoft and Google must be laughing. So what's AWS op inc, Daniel? 31%.
Oh, sorry.
Op inc. Let's just pretend that they got a deal of 10% that gets them to 20% op inc. That pretty much means that AWS is going to be taking a tremendous amount of margin away from this entire thing. I think this is a great deal for AWS. I see Salesforce pouring just an inordinate amount of money. But I'm with you, man. More competition is better. Salesforce is going to have to pour a tremendous amount of resources in this to extend this to something beyond having to work closely with Google and Microsoft, and at the same time losing 20 points to AWS. So great deal for AWS. Question mark on Salesforce. It is interesting though how we had these consumer walled gardens, and now we've got commercial walled gardens, right? And I can't help but to wonder, like, where does SAP fit into this? You know. Anyways, that's for another pod. But it's a cool deal. If nothing else, a lot of great discussion.